Welcome to the Guerin Report. My name is Olivia Guerin, and today I am joined by Judge Spears to discuss the upcoming sheriff's debate. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
What does civic duty mean to you, and why is it important for Americans to stay involved in their communities?
Well, it's a great question. You know, this is America 250. We're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And then a few years later, we had to form a constitution, and it gives us certain rights and responsibilities as American citizens. Two of the very important rights that we have include the right to vote and the right to serve on juries. And so I'm a big proponent of people understanding their rights. Of course, to fulfill your right to vote, you have a duty to inform yourself on the candidates. And so that kind of ties into what we're doing with this Meet the Candidate Forum.
What is the role of judicial candidates in our legal system, and what qualities do you think are most important for someone running for a judgeship?
Well, it's a very important position. You know, all through history, there have been some way of resolving disputes rather than having shootouts at the OK Corral. And so a judicial candidate has to have certain skills and qualities. First of all, they have to have legal training, although when I came here after law school, there were still some judges that weren't lawyers. Until in the 1960s, you could be a judge and not be a lawyer. That people would decide that you had the right wisdom and qualifications, and you could be a judge. Well, after they changed the law, then the judges that weren't lawyers had to go back to law school. But so, of course, you need training. You need to understand the law. But then you need to have patience, a good judicial temperament. You have to have integrity. You don't want to think that the judge is ruling for other than the proper things. You want to be impartial. You want to try to reduce as many biases as you can. So the judicial candidates that we're going to be interviewing and looking at in this election are from 9 different counties. The 4th Judicial Circuit, Christian County, is one of the 9 counties. I could drive 85 miles one way to go to work in the morning. It's that big geographically. So there are candidates running from a number of those different counties. There's a vacancy because we had one of the judges retire. So we have 12 circuit judges. There's one from each county. Judge Paisley is the resident circuit judge in Christian County. Then there are 3 judges that are at-large judges that can be elected from any of the 9 counties. And one of those is Judge Atterbury here in Taylorville. And then those judges elect associate judges, and there's one of those, Judge Frisch. So we have 3 of the different kind of judges in the state here in Christian County. So it's very important. It's a very important position. It's a 6-year term for a circuit judge, and the only time that you're able to have somebody run against them is this first time. After that, they run for retention. They have to get 60% of the people say yes to retain the judge. So it's a very important position. All of you, hopefully, will never have to be in front of a judge. But if you are, it's very important that you know that they're going to be fair and impartial, and they're going to do the very best that they can to make a fair ruling in your case.
That's amazing. That's a very important position to fill up, especially with the election coming up. What are the main responsibilities of county sheriff, and how does that position work with the courts?
Well, it's very important as far as the courts are concerned because you have almost daily interaction with people from the sheriff's department as well as the other law enforcement in the county. It's amazing by statute how many different roles the county sheriff actually has. Not only they serve process, for example, in civil cases. To start a civil case, you have to have a service of process. And so someone from the sheriff's office could be bringing it and having to serve it on you to make sure that you know about the case. They have all the criminal justice process. They have to investigate crime. They have to bring information to the state's attorney so charges can be filed. And then they have to be in charge of both of the courthouse itself for court security, and they're also in charge of the jail where we keep inmates. So there's a large number of different functions the sheriff has, and it's a huge county. There's over 700 miles in this county, over 34,000 people in the county. So you see that it's a really big job.
Yeah, it seems like the courts and then the sheriff's department work together a lot to keep our community safe.
Yes, well, there's a lot of times in the middle of the night I'd get a call from the sheriff's department that they needed a warrant. And so these people are working 24/7. They can never really have enough staff, but for financial reasons, they can't have as many as they'd like. So it's a really big job.
Yes. Could you share a little bit about the history of debates and why open discussion and debate are important in democracy?
Sure. Well, it's the essence of a democracy. I always kid about debates in Abraham Lincoln's time. I'm a big Abraham Lincoln person. And so the debate against Stephen Douglas worked like this. The first person got to speak for 1 hour. Then the next person spoke for an hour and a half. And then the first person got to come back for a half an hour. So you think about that long, outside, no air conditioning, no public address system, and there were thousands of people there anxious to hear what they had to say. Now our idea of a debate sometimes is we ask the candidate, what's world peace? You got a minute and a half. Now how can that possibly really be a debate? The idea of debate was one side takes a position, the other side takes a contrary position, and they go back and forth to be able to emphasize the pros and cons of the respective positions so that somebody listening could make an informed decision. So today it's sometimes unfortunately gotten to be more of a yelling match or a screaming match, and that's really, I don't think, very helpful to the people. On the other hand, the people's patience and tolerance for listening, I think, has decreased a lot too. And so it's up to the media, for example, to be able to bring information to the people so that they really have an opportunity to see it, if not all at one time, over a period of time.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us
You're
today.
welcome.
And remember to tune in to Tommy TV on March 5th for the Sheriff's Debate. Or if you want to go to the Sheriff's Debate, it will be open for free to the public at Pillars. You're watching the Guerin Report. Thank you so much for joining.
Okay, this is the 2-minute warning, so please find yourself someplace to sit. We're going to start exactly at 7 o'clock. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Democracy in Action. On behalf of the Optimist Club, I welcome you to this candidate forum. I want to especially thank Lori Cocaine for allowing us to use this wonderful facility. Let's give her a round of applause. We also want to thank Neil Hohenstein and the wonderful Tommy TV crew that's here tonight. Let's welcome them. And the other media, dignitaries, mayors, and everyone else of importance and unimportance that's here tonight. Welcome. You know, democracy is a fragile thing. It requires participation by the people. It requires the people to accept the responsibility not only of voting, but being informed voters. I went up this week and got the various ballots for both the Democratic and the Republican primary. I had to confess there were at least 20 people in there that I've never heard of. And if I'm going to be a responsible citizen, I'm going to have to do something to try to familiarize myself, at least to know who these people are before I go in and vote. And a lot of those are statewide offices, of course. But we have here tonight with us two very important offices. The Optimist Club is dedicated to respect for law. We sponsor the annual Respect for Law banquet to try to honor all law enforcement in our community. And two integral parts of the law enforcement community, of course, are our judges and our sheriff, our Christian County Sheriff. Absolutely crucial. It happens that we had retirements of a circuit-wide judge, and our sheriff that's been a longtime sheriff of ours is not going to seek re-election. So we have vacancies for those positions, so we will have a new sheriff and we will have a new circuit court judge. So we've invited those candidates here tonight to allow you to get a chance to meet them, listen to them in perhaps a little longer session than they usually get when you hand them at a political rally and say, you got 2 minutes and sit down kind of thing. We're going to give them a little more than that tonight. So you get a little better chance to know the candidates. And a lot of people that are listening in, watching on television, will get a chance to see them. So why do we have a circuit judge vacancy? Well, Judge Doug Jarman from Shelby County retired. We have 12 circuit judges in 9 counties, and I put them in alphabetical order: Christian, Clay, Clinton, Effingham, Fayette, Jasper, Montgomery, Marion, and Shelby. Now, if you don't think that's a big circuit, it's probably the largest geographical circuit in the state. The judge could literally drive 85 miles or more to get to work in the morning. So you can imagine what these candidates are having to go through to try to get around a circuit that size and get to meet people. And so we're glad to allow them this opportunity this evening to talk with you. So each county of the 12 circuit judges, each county has one elected from the county. That's the resident circuit judge, in our case, Judge Paisley. There are 3 at-large circuit court judges in the 9 counties. One of those is in our county, Judge Atterbury. And so there's one vacancy this time for one of the 3 circuit-wide judges, and that's what these judge candidates that are here tonight are seeking. So I'm going to give each of them the time, 10 minutes or so. I'm not going to pull the plug on any of them. Maybe you will, but I won't. But I'm going to give them just a chance, as lawyers say at the end of a case, to make your final argument to the jury. In a democracy, you are the jury. You will make the decisions. And so tonight, they're each going to be able to address you for a talk about why they think that they would be your best choice for candidate for circuit judge. Now, to make everything fair here, we had a very scientific process as to what order they would go in. They pulled numbers out of a cup. So first, the number 1 person that drew the number out of the cup was Phillip Givens. Phillip is the current Clay County State's Attorney. Interestingly, what you'll see here, I told you it was circuit-wide. So of the 4 candidates, we have one from Clay County, one from Marion County, one from Effingham County, and one from Fayette County. So you see how diverse this circuit is. So our first speaker tonight, give a warm welcome, Phillip Givens from Clay County State's Attorney.
Thank you, Judge Spears. First off, I want to thank Judge Spears and the Optimist Club for putting this on. This is a great event to get informed, to get that information out there to the voters. I really appreciate that, and I know the other candidates will as well. And also Tommy TV for live streaming this. Before I get into talking about myself, I will say hi to my wife, Denise, and my daughter, Piper, who is 7 years old. Now that she is watching, I know she's watching, I need to tell everyone she's almost 8, even though she just turned 7 in November. And then my youngest, Lincoln, who's 4 and eats every 15 minutes, probably eating right now. And my oldest, Cooper, who is 16. I really appreciate Tommy TV for doing this and live streaming and being able to get more information out there. I tell this in a lot of times that I talk to people, we are the least known race. Circuit-wide, judicial candidates, we're the least known. So this is a great event, and I appreciate that. As he said, my name is Phillip Givens. I'm currently the Clay County State's Attorney, and I am running for Circuit Judge here in the 4th Judicial Circuit. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and the background that I have and how I got here, where I come from. I wanted to be an attorney ever since the 2nd grade. My parents at that time thought it was a good idea for a 2nd grader to watch the movie A Few Good Men. Lucky for me and them, the only scenes that really grabbed my attention were the courtroom scenes. And they grabbed my attention then and never let go. I graduated from the University of Illinois in 2008, and my lifelong goal of being an attorney had to take a sidestep at that moment. I had a son in 2009, and for the next 2 years I fought for full custody of him, obtaining full custody in 2011. He is still, as I mentioned to him earlier, with us and happy as long as he has gas money now that he's 16. After that, I went to work for the attorney that actually helped me get custody to continue my pursuit in becoming an attorney. In 2013, I went to law school at SIU in Carbondale. At that time, I lived in Ridgeway, Illinois, which is where Indiana, Kentucky, and Illinois all meet together. Really small area. So I was driving an hour and 15 minutes each way, going to law school as a single parent and working as much as I could. I graduated in 2016 and became the Gallatin County Public Defender. Because it was such a small county, while being the public defender there, I opened up my own private practice. Being in a small area, I took everything that came through the door. Adoptions, divorces, estate work, property law, small claims, orders of protection, everything that a circuit judge in our circuit will see on any given day. I did that for 2 years. I left there and became an assistant state's attorney in Saline County. And if anyone knows where Saline County in Harrisburg is, there is a lot of drugs and a lot of crime. I gained a lot of experience during that time. I was there for 2 years, prosecuting petty traffic all the way up to first-degree murder. I left there in 2021, opened up my private office again before becoming an assistant attorney general. And when I did that, I worked in inmate litigation. So usually anytime someone gets sentenced to the Department of Corrections for 10 years or more, they file some sort of lawsuit, file some sort of complaint. I represented correctional officers, wardens, nurses, dietitians against those inmates that filed those lawsuits. I did that from December of 2021 until I got a call in March of 2022 from a friend of mine who asked if I would be interested in becoming the Clay County State's Attorney. Now, I lived in Gallatin County, even further south. It took an hour and a half to get to Louisville, where Clay County seat is. I had been there one time in my entire life. That I think. I wasn't even sure at that time. So I talked it over with my wife. At that time, we had a 7th grader, a 4-year-old, and a not even 1-year-old. We prayed about it, and I just kept telling her I just felt called to do it. I just felt called to take that risk. We took that leap of faith. I got appointed in April of 2022. I ran in a special election that year, ran an election in 2024, and as she says, I'm a glutton for punishment, so now I'm running again in 2026 to be your next circuit judge. Now, I can't stand up here and tell you what I would do as your next circuit judge, how I would rule as your next circuit judge. We're restricted from doing that. But I can stand up here and tell you what I have done as a prosecutor and throughout my career. One of the main things and biggest things to me that I hold near and dear to my heart is the oath that I have taken in every job that I have had as an attorney. and that oath is to uphold the constitutions of the state of Illinois and the United States of America. That oath has gotten stronger and stronger as some of the pro-criminal legislation we have seen come out of Springfield. That oath brought me to being one of the earliest smaller county state's attorney to join the larger counties in suing J.B. Pritzker against the Safety Act. Thank you. That oath brought me to talking to the Illinois State Police Director after the PICA Act came, requiring law-abiding citizens to register their previously purchased assault weapons, and speaking with him about using my prosecutorial discretion whenever that would come across my desk in Clay County. That is an oath that I hold near and dear to my heart and will continue to do that as your next circuit judge. I can tell you also that in Clay County, we don't tolerate drug dealers. We don't tolerate violent offenders, repeat offenders, and we make sure to look out and protect our children. I received the Pillar of Justice Award last year from the Amy Center, which is a child advocacy group. It was the first time they had ever given that award in their 35 years of existence. And that was because of my stance in protection of children. Now, I was raised by a single mother, and I know we didn't have much, but we had our values. And I hold those values dear. I was lucky enough also to have strong grandparents, and my grandpa always taught me there are 3 things that you can do in life, and these are the only things that you have to do. Work hard, be genuine, and have faith. If you do those 3 things, no matter what in your life, you will have success one way or the other. I hold those near and dear just as I hold that oath to uphold the Constitution. Now, John Marshall once said, "A legislative act contrary to the Constitution is not law." To me, that means if something comes in front of you, as we did when we challenged the Safety Act, and it comes in front of you as a judge, and we are saying it's unconstitutional, we need strong judges that are willing to do that. I have a history of doing that as a prosecutor. I have a history of knowing what my values are and holding them near and dear to my heart. I would continue to do that as your next circuit judge. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. It's a great thing, and I'm going to thank Tommy TV again because my kids are be able to watch even though they need to go to bed here soon. But I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all, and I would appreciate your support. To vote Phillip Givens for judge, I am 4th on the ballot. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have the Effingham County State's Attorney on our trip around the circuit, Aaron Jones.
My teenagers, I'm sure, are not watching tonight. And if they are, they're rolling their eyes at me saying something about it. My name is Aaron Jones, as Judge Spears said, and I also want to thank everybody who put this on. Judge, thank you, the Optimist Club, everybody else. I'm going to forget somebody, so let me just leave it at that. Everybody else who's involved in putting it on. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Effingham County. Grew up there. The only times when I've lived outside of that county would be when I was at undergrad and law school. Grew up in a family that spent a lot of time involved in service. Very important to my family. Mission work was something that we grew up doing out of country. Particularly the country of Honduras was a place that we went on a regular basis. So when I had the opportunity after graduating from Effingham High School in 2000 to go to college, I went to the University of Illinois, initially thinking mathematics and computer science, then took a sharp left turn at Albuquerque, as Bugs Bunny would say, and ended up in law somehow. I think what happened is, felt very impressed that I was called to go a different direction in my life, and really felt strongly that that was law. So I changed directions in my sophomore year, started on the path towards law school, graduated, got engaged somewhere in there, waited for my wife to graduate from Eastern Illinois with a teaching degree, and had the opportunity to work at the state's attorney's office in Effingham at that point in time. Very impressionable time in my career that I had yet to start in the law, but a Democrat by the name of Ed Daters was willing to hire a conservative Republican to come work with them because he cared more about helping out a local kid who was interested in the law than he did about politics. I think that's very important. We miss that sometimes in today's day and age, but he was a strong mentor. I have him on the other side of cases all the time right now, and we fight like cats and dogs at times, but we get along professionally very well, and I owe a lot to him. Went out to law school after getting married to my wife, Jennifer. We've been married for 21, going on 22 years now, and started law school out there. Didn't know what we were going to do, but we ended up coming back here. To make law school easier, we had 2 of our 3 kids while I was enrolled there. Don't recommend it if you know somebody getting ready to go through it, but we made it work for us. And came back home to Effingham, where we were both from, and had the last of our 3 kids. They're all between the ages of 15 and 19 now. The youngest is a sophomore in high school. And started working at a firm called Taylor Law Offices. Now, they're a good-sized regional firm. Some of you may be familiar with them. I started working there initially doing estate planning, elder law, contracts. Bored me out of my mind, so I started doing civil litigation shortly thereafter, spending time in the courtroom, getting experience, whether it's family law, whether it's estate litigation, whether it's land disputes. You name it, I probably have handled it during that 13, 14 years working at Taylor Law Offices. In 2022, the opportunity came up for the state's attorney's office in Effingham. I first got a call from a couple people asking if I might be interested in the job, and my first response was, that's a crazy idea. Why the heck would I be interested in that? I've got a good thing going here. I like where I'm at. I like the people I work with. But I thought about it and I prayed about it. I remembered back to the time that I worked there all those years before, decided that it was the right time for a change. As I said before, service is something that's very important to me, and I felt like that was the best way that I could then continue serving the people of the state of Illinois, in particular in my county at that point in time, by prosecuting. So I've been doing that for the last 3.5 years, and it's been something it's a big job. 3 of us candidates do that same job all the time. We all have been dealing with all kinds of things. There's been many changes, as Phil talked about. Everybody's familiar with the Safety Act. We deal with it every day. What I would say, rather than getting into the specifics of anything regarding that, I have a good relationship with law enforcement. I do a great job, I believe, making that a collaborative effort in my job as state's attorney. And if you want to know how they feel about the job that I've done, the Chief Police of Effingham Police Department at the time nominated me for, and I was awarded the 2024 Prosecutor Award for the Southern Illinois Police Chief Association. One last comment. As Judge Spears says, it's important. You're all here because you're trying to get informed. I appreciate that. It's something that is super important. Every year that we do one of these elections, the Illinois State Bar Association does a judicial advisory poll, sends out a list of questions, survey to other practicing attorneys, and if you've had experience with a candidate, you can return a ballot. I'm not going to go through the specifics of all of the results. We don't have time for that tonight. I would encourage each of you to go onto the Illinois State Bar Association website, check out the results by putting in your county, and seeing for informative purposes how our peers rated us. I would thank you for your support. Thank you again for the time to speak here tonight and tell you a little bit about myself and my experience. Thank you.
You know, they always say that the candidate with the candidates with the most hair wins. I'm certainly glad I'm not running for anything anymore. All right. Third, we have Brenda Mathis, Fayette County State's Attorney. Brenda, welcome.
Comments to Judge Spears about hosting this, the Optimist Club for supporting it, and then Tommy TV for live streaming it. My name is Brenda Mathis. I am the current Fayette County State's Attorney. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I am actually from a little bitty town on the Mississippi River called Prairie du Rocher, or Prairie du Rocher, however you want to pronounce it. My husband would say Prairie du Rocher. I grew up there, little bitty town. I think we had 600 people in the entire town. And then I moved down to Southern Illinois when I was 14 years old, right in the middle of high school, much to my dismay, and completed high school at Johnston City, Illinois. I took a little bit of a different track than most candidates will see. I would say that this is actually my second career. When I was 17 years old, I was hired on at McDonald's, and I worked for them for 12 years. And through my time at McDonald's, McDonald's helped me, or at least worked with me, so I could get my associate's degree and my bachelor's degrees. I have 2 bachelor's degrees that I got while I worked with them. I worked for a couple law firms, and it wasn't until 2011 that one of my bosses at McDonald's said, "Have you ever thought about going to law school?" And I said, "No." And he said, at the time I was also working for a law firm, and my boss at my law firm, Bill Broom, said the same thing, "Have you ever thought about going to law school?" And I said, "No." He's like, if you would like to go, I will help you. I will write a letter of recommendation. The owners for the McDonald's that I wrote a letter of recommendation for me also, and I entered law school in 2012. So I took a little bit of a different track. While I was a paralegal, because I did have a paralegal degree, I worked for a couple law firms doing workman's comp, personal injury, estate planning, eminent domain. So I got to see the other side of the law, because as attorneys, we don't get to see that part of it. We get to just see the courtroom and what we work on and what's in front of us. When I graduated law school, I took a job in Decatur, Illinois, and from that, I made the decision to move to Pana, Illinois, mainly because my mom did not want me living in Decatur, and she wanted me to be close to family, and I had family there, so I moved to Pana, Illinois, taking a job at a law firm in Decatur, working at mortgage and banking law. Very dry law. It's very, very dry law. But just that same year, because I graduated in 2014, and I will tell you that I graduated a semester early. Law school is a 3-year program. I did it in 2.5. I had 2 small children. One of the reasons that I didn't want to go to law school and begin with is because I had 2 small children. I knew it would be very hard for me to be a mom, because I was a single mom, and go to law school at the same time. But I will tell you that I had a wonderful support group, a wonderful support family. They were supportive of me and helped me through that. Then when I graduated in December of 2014, took the bar in February of 2015. I was licensed in May of 2015. And then in August of 2015, somebody asked me if I would like to be the assistant state's attorney in Fayette County. And I said, anything has to be better than mortgage and banking law. So I took the job as the assistant state's attorney and stayed there until 2019. And I can tell you, as the assistant state's attorney, you handle, just as Phil and Aaron said, you handle everything. Everything from petty traffic all the way up to first-degree murder. We did do a first-degree murder trial while I was the assistant state's attorney. So those are big cases, but you gain experience in no matter what you do. You're gaining experience every day that you're working. You're always learning something new in this job, because just about the time that we think we have seen it all, something else comes up and we realize we haven't seen it all yet. So I went into private practice in 2019. I left the assistant state's attorney's office, or the state's attorney's office in Fayette County. I went into private practice where I stayed for 3 years. And then in 2022, Fayette County asked me if I would like to be the chief public defender. And I said, sure, I'll come back as the chief public defender. And I was there for 6 months. And the Republican Party came to me and said, we would like for you to be state's attorney. And my response was, no. I like where I'm at. I like my job. I like what I'm doing. And they said, pray about it. So I went to my husband and I said, they have asked me to be the state's attorney, and he said, no. But he said, we will pray about it. So we prayed about it. Took us a couple weeks, but I decided to apply for the position, and I was appointed in December of 2022 and then ran in 2024. One of the things that rings true with what Phil said was we take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Illinois. We take that oath when we become licensed attorneys. That is our job, is to uphold that Constitution. And as a judge, I can tell you as an attorney, some of the qualities that I look for in a judge is to make sure that they are experienced. They have had that prosecutorial experience. They have had private practice experience. And I have over a decade of that. So I would appreciate your vote on March 17th of this year. This has been a long, hard, you have good candidates to choose from. And that is something that doesn't happen in every single race, but I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Well, our fourth candidate is not a state's attorney. In fact, he is the judge that has been appointed to fill this position until the election. We have an amazing Supreme Court justice in this district. David Overstreet does an amazing job. So whenever there's a vacancy in a position, the court has to decide whether to fill it or not. And it often depends on how long it is till the next election. And with the heavy load in the circuit, they don't want to be a judge down for too long. So appointed to the position was Wesley Gozia. And so the next candidate for the position, he has to now run, and he has to run against fine candidates, and he has to win to retain the position, is Wesley Gozia.
Judge Spears, thank you very much. Optimist Club, thank you very much for hosting this great event. It's great to be back in the Pillars. I love this venue. Lori, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to be here tonight. As Judge Spears said, I'm Judge Wesley Gozia. I currently hold the position that was vacated by Judge Jarman due to his retirement. My wife Renee's here with me. My kids, Libby and Hank, they had to stay home tonight because it's a school night. So, but they are sad they could not be here, and they're looking forward to coming back up to Taylorville for some parades. That's their favorite part about campaigning right now. But before I'm anything else, before I'm judge, before I'm a candidate, I'm a fellow citizen just like each and every one of you here tonight. And I want what's best for our community and what's best for America. And thank you all for being here and being a part of the political process. It's very important. Growing up, my mom was a physician, an OBGYN, so she was gone a lot, missed a lot of baseball games, a lot of hockey games, because she was out serving the public, serving her patients. And that taught me from a very early age the responsibility there is when you have a job that serves the public. I've learned from that since a very young age, and I bring that with me here today. And it's been reinforced along the campaign trail. I've seen a lot of people who were my mom's patients as I was a young kid. They tell me they remember me sitting on the edge of their hospital bed when I was just a little guy. And you know, how they remember that and how that had an impact on them too, my mom being there for them. And I want to have that opportunity to serve as well. And I've been doing that since I was appointed last March. I would have went into medicine, but blood is not my thing. So I had to come up with a different way to serve, and the law was the best opportunity to do that. So I know these positions aren't handed to people, so I'm here to ask and try to earn your vote. Graduated from law school. I opened my own practice, which I ran for nearly 15 years, a very successful practice that helped provide for my family and helped provide for my employees and their families. It was bittersweet. It was right about this time last year, as a matter of fact, that I was shutting down my practice. And it was a huge honor and privilege to be able to serve my friends and family and neighbors while in private practice. And it's an even greater honor to be able to serve the public in this role. As far as what I did while I was in private practice, I did the typical private practice that you have in a small community, doing a little bit of everything, criminal, family law, just whatever comes in the door, and the same type of things that I see every day when I'm serving in the courtroom. I've served in all 9 counties doing the whole variety of the legal system that we have in our state courts. Throughout my practice and continuing, I've been networking with other attorneys and judges throughout the state of Illinois through my involvement with the Illinois State Bar Association and my involvement in some Supreme Court committees, trying to network with people who are experts in their specific fields. So I have people I can talk to when I have questions that I need. Because we're not all perfect. We don't know everything. As much as we like to think we know everything, everybody has their niche. So I always like to talk to people who know their specific thing so I can help better serve my clients and so I can help better make decisions on the bench for each and every one of you here. Now, I'll back up to the appointment process. Judge German retired in January of last year, and as Judge Spears mentioned, Justice Overstreet had the job of making that appointment to fill the vacancy. He created a committee that was actually chaired by Judge Cody. I don't know if Judge Cody's here tonight, but the committee was composed of 5 retired judges and 4 practicing attorneys. And there were 8 people who applied for the position, and that committee vetted the candidates, went through the application process, did interviews. And then 3 people were advanced to the second stage interview, and I was lucky enough to be nominated by Justice Overstreet and unanimously appointed to the position by the Illinois Supreme Court. So I am very humbled and honored to be able to serve you, and I would ask for your vote to be able to continue serving you after this election. I understand that people want respect and they want dignity. Every time people come into my courtroom, I make sure I treat them with respect and dignity, even when I have to hold them accountable. I believe in holding the people accountable. I believe in keeping our streets safe from violent criminals and repeat offenders, and I have a proven track record of doing so. I'm a conservative because I believe in limited government. I believe in personal responsibility. I believe in supporting the Constitution. I'm Judge Wesley Gozia. I would appreciate your vote. Vote W for the win on March 17th or earlier. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Inspiring to me as a former circuit judge to see this next generation of young people coming along. So let's give them all a warm round of applause. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute recess so we can get set up for the next phase. And you know by now, after 30 years of military service, 10 minutes means 10 minutes. So we're going to start in 10 minutes.
Welcome to the Guerin Report. My name is Olivia Guerin, and today I am joined by Judge Spears to discuss the upcoming sheriff's debate. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
What does civic duty mean to you, and why is it important for Americans to stay involved in their communities?
Well, it's a great question. You know, this is America 250. We're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And then a few years later, we had to form a constitution, and it gives us certain rights and responsibilities as American citizens. Two of the very important rights that we have include the right to vote and the right to serve on juries. And so I'm a big proponent of people understanding their rights. Of course, to fulfill your right to vote, you have a duty to inform yourself on the candidates. And so that kind of ties into what we're doing with this Meet the Candidate Forum.
What is the role of judicial candidates in our legal system, and what qualities do you think are most important for someone running for a judgeship?
Well, it's a very important position. You know, all through history, there have been some way of resolving disputes rather than having shootouts at the OK Corral. And so a judicial candidate has to have certain skills and qualities. First of all, they have to have legal training, although when I came here after law school, there were still some judges that weren't lawyers. Until in the 1960s, you could be a judge and not be a lawyer. That people would decide that you had the right wisdom and qualifications, and you could be a judge. Well, after they changed the law, then the judges that weren't lawyers had to go back to law school. But so, of course, you need training. You need to understand the law. But then you need to have patience, a good judicial temperament. You have to have integrity. You don't want to think that the judge is ruling for other than the proper things. You want to be impartial. You want to try to reduce as many biases as you can. So the judicial candidates that we're going to be interviewing and looking at in this election are from 9 different counties. The 4th Judicial Circuit, Christian County, is one of the 9 counties. I could drive 85 miles one way to go to work in the morning. It's that big geographically. So there are candidates running from a number of those different counties. There's a vacancy because we had one of the judges retire. So we have 12 circuit judges. There's one from each county. Judge Paisley is the resident circuit judge in Christian County. Then there are 3 judges that are at-large judges that can be elected from any of the 9 counties. And one of those is Judge Atterbury here in Taylorville. And then those judges elect associate judges, and there's one of those, Judge Frisch. So we have 3 of the different kind of judges in the state here in Christian County. So it's very important. It's a very important position. It's a 6-year term for a circuit judge, and the only time that you're able to have somebody run against them is this first time. After that, they run for retention. They have to get 60% of the people say yes to retain the judge. So it's a very important position. All of you hopefully will never have to be in front of a judge, but if you are, it's very important that you know that they're going to be fair and impartial, and they're going to do the very best that they can to make a fair ruling in your case.
That's amazing. That's a very important position to fill up, especially with the election coming up. What are the main responsibilities of county sheriff, and how does that position work with the courts?
Well, it's very important as far as the courts are concerned because you have almost daily interaction with people from the sheriff's department as well as the other law enforcement in the county. It's amazing by statute how many different roles the county sheriff actually has. Not only they serve process, for example, in civil cases. To start a civil case, you have to have a service of process. And so someone from the sheriff's office could be bringing it and having to serve it on you to make sure that you know about the case. They have all the criminal justice process. They have to investigate crime. They have to bring information to the state's attorney so charges can be filed. And then they have to be in charge of both of the courthouse itself for court security, and they're also in charge of the jail where we keep inmates. So there's a large number of different functions the sheriff has, and it's a huge county. There's over 700 miles in this county, over 34,000 people in the county. So you see that it's a really big job.
Yeah, it seems like the courts and then the sheriff's department work together a lot to keep our community safe.
Yes, well, there's a lot of times in the middle of the night I'd get a call from the sheriff's department that they needed a warrant. And so these people are working 24/7. They can never really have enough staff, but for financial reasons, they can't have as many as they'd like. So it's a really big job.
Yes. Could you share a little bit about the history of debates and why open discussion and debate are important in democracy?
Sure. Well, it's the essence of a democracy. I always kid about debates in Abraham Lincoln's time. I'm a big Abraham Lincoln person. And so the debate against Stephen Douglas worked like this. The first person got to speak for 1 hour. Then the next person spoke for an hour and a half. And then the first person got to come back for a half an hour. So you think about that long outside, no air conditioning, no public address system, and there were thousands of people there anxious to hear what they had to say. Now our idea of a debate sometimes is we ask the candidate, what's world peace? You got a minute and a half. Now how can that possibly really be a debate? The idea of debate was one side takes a position, the other side takes a contrary position, and they go back and forth to be able to emphasize the pros and cons of the respective positions so that somebody listening could make an informed decision. So today it's sometimes unfortunately gotten to be more of a yelling match or a screaming match, and that's really, I don't think, very helpful to the people. On the other hand, the people's patience and tolerance for listening, I think, has decreased a lot too. And so it's up to the media, for example, to be able to bring information to the people so that they really have an opportunity to see it, if not all at one time, over a period of time.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us
You're
today.
welcome.
And remember to tune in to Tommy TV on March 5th for the sheriff's debate. Or if you want to go to the sheriff's debate, it will be open for free to the public at Pillars. You're watching the Guerin Report. Thank you so much for joining.
Okay, we got a 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning. Okay, as promised, we're going to get started here. Many of you know that I'm a big Abraham Lincoln fan, and so I think we ought to bring back debates like they had it back in Abraham Lincoln's time. When he debated Stephen Douglas, the first candidate went for an hour, the second went for an hour and a half, and then the rebuttal was a half an hour. Now, I'm sure all of you would pay rapt attention for that long, especially when you were outside in the heat with no public address system, right? But you know, that was what debates were in the old days. We've kind of lost that. We're now more in a generation was, how do you bring world peace? We'll give you a minute and a half. So tonight, we're not going to give you a minute and a half. We're going to give a little more than that. But I'm really thankful that the two candidates for this very, very important position were willing to come forward and answer some questions, all right? Now, let me say first that I did them a big disservice to make them follow 4 lawyers. That really is unfair to have to follow people that charge by the word. So in any event, no offense to my lawyer friends and to my judge candidate friends, but we don't judge our sheriff by whether they can get up and give a 10-minute speech. We judge our sheriffs by the work that they do, how they work with their staff, how they manage the facilities, and it's a big job. And so we're going to hear about that tonight. So the questions that were prepared, I consulted with various law enforcement people, I consulted with judges, and I told both candidates that I would send them the questions 1 week in advance, and I did. So they knew what the questions were, and I'm going to ask them in the order that I told them I was going to answer. So they're not going to be surprised. I'm not trying to shock anybody here. I'm just trying to give them a chance to answer some questions for the public. And we have over 100 here and over 100 online, and that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But this will remain online so that other people can come forward and to be able to see it in the future and see excerpts from it. And if they want to be informed citizens, they will be able to be. And that was the object of tonight. All right? So we got that hermetically sealed cup out again and had them draw to see who would have to answer the first question first. And candidate Deal won that lottery, and so he's going to be able to answer the first question first, okay? Tell us your law enforcement qualifications and experience and why you want to be Christian County Sheriff.
Well, I want to thank the Optimist Club and Tommy TV and Judge Spears. Public speaker, I am not, folks. I've been married to my wife for 34 years. We got 4 kids. Retirement center out there, a retirement system out there for Orange County. My middle son, Austin, he's lieutenant down at Graham Correctional Center in Hillsboro. My youngest boy works at Oberman Construction. He's a supervisor in Pontiac. And my daughter, she's the baby of the family. She is a junior at Mizzou in nursing. And we have 1 grandson that we should have had before we had the first 4, and it'd been a lot better. So he's definitely the best thing in our lives. My law enforcement knowledge is 24 years in law enforcement. Started in Kincaid. Jim and I actually both started in Kincaid. I've worked at the sheriff's office for 17 years. I've been in Stonington for the last 3. Now I'm assistant chief in Stonington. When I was at the sheriff's office, I specialized in DUI, traffic enforcement, and I was a taser instructor. I'm trained in drug recognition patrol, and like I said, currently serve as the assistant chief in Stonington.
Good. All right. You ready?
My turn? Yep. You turned on? Okay. Excuse me. So for me, I've spent the last 27 years in law enforcement. I started my career in 1998 in Kincaid, where I grew up, and I've had the opportunity to work in every aspect of this career, from the streets to administration. Obviously, starting on the streets, I was working for the citizens directly, and that experience has shaped how I lead today in my current role. During my 27 years, I went back to school and earned a degree in law enforcement. I've served as a canine officer, worked in investigations, and for more than a decade, I've been in some type of supervisory role, to include a shift sergeant, as well as during my tenure at the Kincaid Police Department, I was the chief of police, where I was responsible for budgeting and community safety. And for the past 4.5 years, I've served as your chief deputy at the sheriff's office. That's a role that I take very seriously. In that role, in the sheriff's absence, that's me handling the daily operations to make sure that the office is ran efficiently and effectively. On a daily basis, I handle the payroll, the scheduling, policies and procedures, work with the county board hand in hand. But most importantly, when it comes to some of the experiences, I've been solely responsible for preparing and managing a balanced $4.5 million budget. During that time, I worked with the sheriff and tried to look at ways that we could do things more efficiently and cost effectively. So through that, I've secured over $140,000 worth of grant funding. I seen a vision to basically better communicate with the public, so I took hands in creating and implementing the sheriff's mobile app for improvement communications with the public and public transparency. So to identify future problems, I'm honored to serve on a multitude of advisory boards, to include the Lincoln Land Community College Law Enforcement Advisory Board, the Illinois State Police Drug Task Force Board, and lastly, the Shelby Christian 911 Board. And quick story about that. Been on over there for quite some time, and a couple months ago, I was stepped out of the meeting to take a call for the county board at their meeting, and I walked back in, and everybody in there said, all in favor say aye, and they looked at me for my vote, and I said, well, I'm sure not going to be the only one vote nay, and they said, congratulations, you've been appointed to the chairman of that board. So careful what you step out in a meeting. So to wrap that up, I'm running for sheriff because I truly believe that the sheriff's office isn't all about politics. It's about experience, accountability, and leadership. Christian County deserves a sheriff that understands this job from top to bottom, that manages the taxpayer dollars well, and keeps public safety in mind on behalf of the citizens of Christian County. So thank you.
Okay. The first question this time will come this way. Christian County covers around 710 square miles with a population of over 34,000 people living in several cities, villages, and unincorporated areas. What is the current staffing of the Sheriff's Department, and do you believe it is adequate? How will you address any staffing shortages, and how will you address any staff morale and retention issues?
So to answer that question, the county board is, the sheriff's office is fully staffed based on the allocations provided by the county board in the budget. That would include 18 sworn officers, not counting the 2 that would be sheriff and I, 10 correction officers, and 8 dispatchers. And we are currently fully staffed. Now that being said, just like our biggest hurdle is retention, correction officers are coming and going based on getting trained, and then the Illinois Department of Corrections scooping them up, and you know, we promote the idea of advancing their careers. But with that, the Sheriff's Department, if we focus on the deputies, that in itself, currently we have, we operate with 2 deputies on the road at all times. Oftentimes during the week, that could be 1 deputy, 2 investigators, and the sheriff and I, based on staffing. And since taking over as chief deputy, one of the big things that I wanted to do was look at the staffing issues. And I sat down and collaboratively worked with the county board. And since being chief deputy in 2021, we've put additional staffing in the jail for 2 correction officers, where they used to work with 1 back in the jail monitoring and taking care of the inmates, and we now always operate with 2, with sergeants in the evenings and on day shift. Additionally, we've got an additional dispatcher And so that took care of correction and dispatch. When it come to the deputies, I talked to the sheriff and staffing, and I was thankful that I sat down with the county board, and I was told, well, you know, the road deputies number is not going to change. But I sat down with members of the county board, and over a 6-month period, we looked at the retention of overworked employees covering benefit time. We also looked into what do we serve per capita. So if you take the number of people in Taylorville and how many officers they have and how many they serve, and we were, you know, well behind that when you compare Pana and Taylorville. So what we looked at with additionally to increase staffing, we talked it over, and in complete transparency and collaboration, I was excited to say that the county, for the first time in 23 years, in 2023, approved the additional hiring of another deputy. With that, I created a floater position where instead of operating with 2, if we can get back to full staff, that puts us with, at times, 7 deputies on at one time with an overlap of coming and going of shifts. So I'm confident that we've done the right thing when it comes to staffing in a short period of time. Additionally, we hired an administrative coordinator with the onset of FOIAs and legal paperwork to better protect the county to make sure that we're doing that in a responsible way. So looking ahead to address future staffing needs, what I would like to do is model this after what the Sheriff's Association done last year. And I would like to work with a video company, maybe something as such as Tommy TV, and I have a vision of doing a Step Up and Serve campaign where we would highlight what it's like to be a deputy and corrections or dispatcher, to emphasize those jobs here locally to I think that would be a great opportunity for people to see what it is to be a deputy or corrections or dispatch. So I believe when you asked about retention and morale, you know, retention, we're always going to struggle like everybody else trying to get valid candidates. The morale is one of those things that I plan to hold, if elected sheriff, I'll hold biannual meetings and have each individual employee have the opportunity to sit down and listen to their concerns and their issues and address those early on and see if there's anything that we can do better. Because as a sheriff's office, it only works as good as the team and the people being involved. But there's times where, you know, decisions have to be made, and we need to make sure that through my tenure of that, I've made decisions, listened to it, and we've went back and retracted some of it and said, you know what, maybe this role model's not working, and we'll address those issues to make those concerns valid for those employees, because we want to ensure that those employees are supported and valued and part of the team. So basically, to me, strong staffing starts with strong leadership, communication, and respect to the people that are doing the job. Thank you.
Bill? It's probably going to work best if we don't applaud in between, just so that at the end we appreciate both candidates, and I just think it would be more respectful if we just let them finish all of their questions and then applaud at the end. Okay? Thank you. Phil?
How I would 6 full-time dispatchers, 7 part-time dispatchers, 2 that's in training right now. There's 10 full-time jailers and 4 part-time jailers. There's currently 16 deputies who are in the union for the Christian County Sheriff's Office who respond to calls for service. 2 of those deputies are assigned to investigative work, and 1 will be taking over court security supervisor position, which will leave 3 deputies across all shifts total patrol for 716 miles in just a few weeks. Accounting for regularly scheduled days off, benefit time, emergency circumstances, we frequently see instances where there's only 1 deputy working the road. This only 1 person for each this only 4 maximum for each shift that covers 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's how there's 2 deputies working the road and sometimes just 1 at any given time. This eliminates the possibility of proactive traffic and drug enforcement opportunities to advance public safety and frequently puts these law enforcement professionals in danger. This 1 deputy is responding to violent domestic disturbances, combative subjects, and those experiencing mental health crisis alone. Backup can be with anywhere between 10 and 40 minutes. And if you're a member of the public, your call is not an emergency situation. You can be waiting hours before you get a response. Beyond the low staffing numbers, mandatory overtime shifts is causing a huge strain on the agency. The overtime costs to the county exceed the budget year after year, indicating the staffing levels are significantly lower than operational needs demand. The last 5 years. In 21, it was 12.45% over budget. 7.9 over budget. In 23, it was 32.71% over budget. In 24, it was 31.67 over budget. In 25, it was 17.77% over budget. This is unacceptable to the public, and it's unacceptable to true leadership. Our law enforcement professionals deserve the best chance at support and safety as we can give them as leaders. And if they cannot feel safe performing their duties based on what their leadership has provided, then the mission has failed. The Sheriff's Office is generally the largest law enforcement organization in the county, outside of major metropolitan areas, and this is not so in our county. The few deputies have no real chance to make a presence in the smaller areas or our current trajectory. If elected sheriff, my plan is to hire and train more deputies to bolster numbers and get these men and women into our rural areas. Beyond training, I will leverage my great working relationship with our area law enforcement partners to engage in mutual aid and support arrangements to ensure safety of the public and my deputies. It will never be seen that in my leadership that there's 1 deputy on the road to assist you. When you need help, trained members of my agency will be on the way to you. At the end of the day, myself and my leadership team will not be locked in an office. We will be visible on our patrol cars, helping answering your calls and service in the field. Leadership from the front, not behind a desk. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, speaking of numbers, okay, now that goes for both sides on this applausometer. Appreciate it. We're for our candidate, and so I just asked. And by the way, on the numbers, we're hearing a lot of numbers. I was wrong on Tommy TV. It's over 400 people are watching online. So there are people that are watching and appreciating the efforts that all of these candidates are making. All right, you're up first the next time, Phil. Several of the cities and villages in the county have police departments. What are your views on collaborating with other law enforcement agencies, local, state, and federal, and anything that you know about cooperating with ICE?
Law enforcement's a team effort, no matter how you look at it. One agency or one officer, for that matter, never succeeds in operating alone. Law enforcement shares information, resources, and training to the betterment of the public. This works at the local, state, and federal level. I have been a part of the community action team in Stonington for 2 years now. I'm aware of times law enforcement agencies refuse to work together and fail. I would like to see jurisdictions extended. Example, Edinburgh. I would like to see Edinburgh's jurisdiction extended from the county line, from the Christian Sangamon County line, back to 200 North. It's down as a mile south of the new John Deere. For traffic, for speed enforcement. People are crazy driving on that road. If Morrisonville Police Department would like to patrol between Morrisonville and Palmer for speed enforcement, do it. We can get MOUs, memorandums of understanding, between the departments and agencies to better serve the citizens of Christian County.
So I believe strong collaboration is essential to keeping communities safe. As chief deputy, there was a big push sometime back a little over a year ago. The community action team in Taylorville, has obviously done an impact when it comes to narcotics locally. And oftentimes they would make a traffic stop and it would result in out into the county. The push for the sheriff's office to join the team, there were some stumbling blocks in it when it comes to jurisdictional issues, because it would roll out into the county, they would get a warrant, but then we're advised, you know, you can't go out into the county and execute that warrant because it's outside of your jurisdiction. So with that, I sat down with, I think it was 9 meetings with Daniel Bland, Chief Wheeler, worked with the state's attorney, and we reviewed things like the policies and procedures, memos of understandings, and jurisdictional issues, and eventually was able to come to the table, and we put 2 members from the sheriff's office onto the community action team. I just spoke with the individual that runs the emergency response team for the Taylorville Police Department, and I've got a couple guys interested in, when the weather breaks, they'll be doing a physical fitness, and we'll be assigning a couple to the emergency response team, the emergency response team, to ensure coordination and critical in critical incidents, that we have collaboration between the departments there. I also, in the future, plan to work with the chiefs of police to have basically chiefs and command staff meetings on a regular basis to address challenges and identify proactively some of the ways that we can better serve the community. I've also, over the past 4 months, have been attending a meeting in Southern Illinois where we'll be joining up the Downstate Major Crimes Squad Unit, which will allow us to bring, through the Sheriff's Association, investigators in during a critical incident that would allow us to have extra resources. If we have to interview 15 people in a critical incident, we'll be able to bring extra investigators in, and it'll also allow us to send our investigators to neighboring counties to work with them. But the big thing is, when I go to these meetings, and when it comes to collaboration and forming groups and signing on with MOUs, it has to be done the right way. There's a legal and a proper way to do that, and that's why you have to have things like committees and organizations look at that. When it comes to downstate, we deal with the state police, the attorneys in each one of those counties, and review policies and procedures. When it comes to the issues of signing on with a organization, you have to have things in place that protects the county when it comes to the indemnification of basically the big liability. We can't just sign on and say, hey, you're going to do this. There's actually state statute that says you have to follow the law. You can't put the county in any undue risk, whether that's financially or in any liability. So it's got to be done the right way. An example of this is how we work with the state police. We've got an individual assigned to the Illinois State Police Drug Task Force, where he combats drugs regionally, preventing drugs coming into the county, all while adhering to the strict policies within the state police. That's being done, and it's all through collaboration and review by reaching out to the state's attorney. I'm currently doing that now. We've got a deputy working in his it's open to all the deputies, but they're working after hours in Kincaid in the absence of a police department, but it's under review by the state's attorney and on behalf of the county board to make sure that we're doing it correctly and legally, and I've gained that experience to know these things that have to be done correctly. So finally, to answer your question about what I know about immigration, we follow state mandates when it comes to the guidelines set forth by the state. We don't make policies, and we're obligated to follow them. And so that's why just last month, on an annual basis, the Sheriff's Office is required to report to the Attorney General's office in whether or not we had any collaboration with a federal agency like ICE. So my approach is simple. We need to collaborate, communicate, and comply with the law, always keeping public safety and the fiscal responsibility and liability at mind for the county. Thank you.
See, you already went on that one, right?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
so.
yeah, I think you did. We don't want to get confused. Of the county jail. Do you believe our current jail, once construction is completed, is adequate for the safety of the inmates, jail staff, and general public? If not, what changes are necessary? Does the removal of the sheriff's office from the jail pose any safety concerns?
Thank you, Judge. If you don't mind, I'll explain real quick that when he talks about the removal of the sheriff's office from the jail, a little over 2 years ago, we put together a group called JAG, Jail Advisory Group, to look at concerns within the deterioration and life safety measures within the jail. And through that and through some ARPA funds, we worked with the county board, and the county board made the decision that they owned a building at 214 Market Street, and it was only occupied by 2 people and a secretary. At that time, through this project, I was appointed ultimately to become the project manager to oversee a $2.1 million jail renovation. And part of that was the operations of the sheriff's office, to include administration, the deputies, and clerical, moved out of the jail and moved to Market Street. So with that, as being appointed to that, the $2 million jail renovation, I was directly involved with overseeing and addressing life safety measures, and that was done by review of things that building was built in 1975 to house 21 inmates, and it now holds, there's been times where we double bunk them and we've had 60 or 70. So some of the life safety measures we addressed was putting fire suppression throughout the entire building. We designed it to where it had a safer intake area for not only the inmates, but the employees that are booking these individuals into the jail. And it also, we added an extra exit into the dispatch area, allowing a safe exit out of the building in the event of a fire. So because I was directly involved from the very beginning, I'm confident that the jail does provide a safe environment for the staff, the inmates, as well as the public. But I'd like to add that additionally, as chief deputy, we looked at what else could be done, and that's where we put additional cameras throughout the building that we now have remote access to, that when it comes to the off-site and whether or not being out of the building poses any additional risk, we've already seen the effects of having investigators and myself have the cameras in the background where we're putting extra eyes in the jail to be able to call over and feed information over to the correction officers to basically mitigate any issues going on that, they can't be everywhere at all times. Additionally, at no cost, in part of that ARPA funds, one of the things that me and the chief or the jail administrator looked at is we're responsible in the jail overseeing that to make rounds throughout the jail on a timed basis. And I'm glad to say that one of the ideas that we done was took on a rounds checking system that now gives an audible alert and makes sure that we, at every best practice, makes the rounds throughout the jail to make it on time to meet the Illinois Jail and Detention Standards Board's requirements. The secondary benefit to that with this rounds checker system, when it's fully integrated, we will be able to mitigate any misdistribution of medication, because they'll be wearing a wristband like you would get at the hospital that was basically going to mitigate, the nurse will be able to digitally keep track of what meds is being supplied to the individual, as well as tracking what room they're in. Additionally, since being the chief deputy, I worked with the jail administrator and the county board, and we were able to budgetarily put in a line item funds for a supervisor during the day in the jail for a jail sergeant. And also we went back to the table and got a second one for an evening sergeant to give supervision to all the newer correction officers to basically have some guidance and safer environment for those working there. So I truly believe that the relocation of the sheriff's office outside of the jail does not create any additional concerns. Just like the cameras being monitored in real time and everybody being able to see that, if anything, it increases oversight and safety. To add one last final thing, I was just informed yesterday, you'll hear me talk a lot about grants and funding and stuff like that I've accomplished since 21. I just got notice yesterday that we'll be, that we're going to be approved for a grant that's going to allow me to, after completion of the proper policy, we'll be administering body cams to the correction officers to wear on a daily basis. And it will be done to basically be proof of evidence if they have to go hands-on. We've had several correction officers get hurt in handling with those inmates. And also, it will basically protect them from false allegations from inmates. But there again, it's all got to be done through collaboration with, I'm reaching out to the states, the Sheriff's Association's attorney to get multiple policies to review and find one that best fits the Sheriff's Office. So I believe this project that we've done at the Sheriff's Office and being hands-on with it shows that as a sheriff, it's a way to plan carefully, invest responsibly, and put safety first. Thank you.
The jail. Even after construction on the building is finished, remains unsafe and an aging liability to the people of Christian County. Most of the renovations in the jail has done nothing with the detention areas occupied by inmates. The plans mostly have centered around ensuring water doesn't leak into the basement anymore and providing office spaces for jail supervisors. The living areas and the outside of the building looks identical to how it has been for decades, reflecting lack of change from within. The floors still need to be redone. New windows and ambient light, body scanners for things that's brought into the jail, shower floors need done, electric locks on cell doors need fixed, security ceilings in dorm 202, cell 104, cell 105 with upgraded lighting was taken out of the project due to the money going to the Market Street building. Holding cell was not split in half to separate inmates during intake. Once again, money went to Market Street building. Outdoor recreation was taken out of the plans 100% due to the Market Street funding. Federal inmates used to be a vital part of the revenue for Christian County. Federal inmate housing in 2020 brought in $160,900, 21 to $105,473. In 22, it was $200,579. In 23, $194,065. In 24, $65,948. And in 25, zero. In 2024, my opponent told the citizens of Christian County he would bring back federal inmates to the jail, especially with no bond condition, under the Safety Act, allowing lowering local inmate populations. That has not happened. When correctional officers conduct their checks, they're isolated from the view of the jail staff in the narrow hallway and twisting hallways, increasing chances of attacks on personnel. Several correctional officers have been injured recently in years due to inmate attacks. Nothing has been done to protect these men and women from the workplace environments. These attacks have only increased in both frequency and intensity, and the only thing that's done about them is to the current administration is to hide their existence from the public. When you combine the fact that the deputies are no longer posted in the jail, it's a matter of time before significant injury or potential life-threatening injury experienced by the correction staff. If I'm elected sheriff, I intend to return to the facility with correction staff with my deputies. We're one team, isolating our office to separate buildings.
I hope if you're listening, one of the things that comes into your mind is, wow, this is a big job, right? I mean, just listening to all the things that they've been responsible for already, and there's more, right? There's more. And I also have to give some credit to the sheriffs over the years. It's not that this hasn't been brought to the attention asking for help. The circuit judge has to go through the jail once a year and review it. And I was always most concerned about the safety of the people working there. Nobody wants to have a Taj Mahal, but it has to be safe for both the inmates and for the people working there. And they can do all that they can, but it takes so much money to redo a building that old and so forth. So I want you to know that your sheriffs have fought for these issues, and it's always been a funding crisis, And it's going to continue to be a funding crisis when they come to you, the people, and say, we need money because you're thinking it's, to make life easy for inmates. That's not it at all. It's to make a safe facility for both the inmates and for the people that work there. All right, the next question that we have. The sheriff also acts as custodian of the county courthouse. This court security is very important. I want that to be said right now, right? All right. Do you believe that any changes to court security is needed? The Sheriff's Department has also been a participant in the drug court program that Judge Paisley done an amazing job with, and other drug and alcohol prevention programs. Will you be supportive of that participation? It's you first, Phil.
Court security. I've got a nephew, and I mentioned my son works down at Graham Correctional Center. My he was in charge of writs, which is you take an inmate to court in various counties throughout the state. He's advised me that Christian County has one of the safest, best court security programs that he has been in the state. I would not change anything with the court security. It sounds to me like from what he's saying, it's a very well-ran operation. Concerning drug court and substance abuse programs, I'm absolutely in support of these programs. Safe Passage has helped beat people's addiction before and after court proceedings occur, and it is a need in our community. Its effect has delivered meaningful reduction in repeat offenders and has reunited parents with their children for a healthy, lasting future. As a dad and a grandpa, it's a joyous feeling to know that their child and mom and dad is all back together, living healthy. Not every problem should be solved by a jury trial. Some issues require alternate paths. I believe that all these alternative programs like drug court, diversion, Safe Passage offer an opportunity for individuals to regain their lives and leave their old ways behind and start with a clean slate. With that being said, I value these integrity of the programs and will not allow people to take advantage of the compassion of the care of these providers and professional personnel. I'm a believer in granting help when it is sought, but not forcing help on those not able or willing to do the work to follow through. I will gladly walk with those in need, but true change does not allow me to walk for them. They need to be willing to make amends and put in the work to change the lasting meaning for themselves. We need to understand the mental health issues facing our county by training more in this area to help people suffering with this illness. I have recently attended classes on autism. It would be very beneficial to our deputies to know more on this matter, to better handle situations interacting with people with autism, and that's one of my main plans.
So I'm glad to hear my opponent talk about the security and the courthouse. That's been a big focus over the past few years, and I think we've accomplished that goal. And I'm always going to be willing, just like being the chief deputy involved in the daily operations, to meet with the judges, the department heads, and listen to the concerns. I will go back approximately 5 or 6 years ago. That courthouse was ran in order to save money, there again, through the collective bargaining unit and the county board. They basically pulled a court security deputy, full-time deputy over there running the courthouse. He came out of there. And it ran for 4 or 5 years with part-time employees and that have limited resources when it comes to, even at the state level, just to get somebody certified to work in the court security. It just says, well, if they're a retired correction officer or police officer, here you go. And since then, we've looked at getting additional training for them. We've been a voice at the table with the Sheriff's Association, pushing legislation to get the Illinois Training and Standards Board to provide more training for those part-time officers. They're a vital part of us operating the court security within the courthouse. But I'll go back to, in 2022, as the person that was negotiating on behalf of the sheriff's office on the collective bargaining unit, we come to an agreement with the county board on putting the full-time deputy back in the courthouse, and we've done that in '22. That strengthened the security measures within the courthouse, and that individual done a great job of identifying problems. Then to further address things in the non-funded taxpayer money, jail renovation, and overall issues within the county, they allocated ARPA fund money, and as part of that, I was directly involved in what could be done at the courthouse to make it more secure. And that's where I was able to look at a system for a key fob system that integrates that countywide when it comes to the sheriff's office and the courthouse, allowing deputies to have a key after hours with simply using a key fob, but it tracks it, as well as department heads coming and going after hours, all while keeping and maintaining the security of the building. Additionally, we secured a brand new, to replace outdated equipment, we secured a brand new metal detector and an x-ray machine to put at the front door that had been there for over 25 years. There again, no taxpayer dollars. And then one of the department heads had a concern, and we was able to secure an alarm system for the public defender's office. And lastly, just in the last 6 months, I'm proud to say that I acquired, there again, more grant money for 6 ballistic vests for every individual that works in the court security. Previously, they didn't either have a ballistic vest or they used an old expired vest. And now, through proper grant funding and attention to their security, we now have ballistic vests for everybody that works in the courthouse. So when it comes to drug court, and I fully support the drug court, drug prevention, and problem solvings. I know that the current sheriff attends the meeting every Wednesday religiously and is actively involved in that. And after seeing how that program's worked, I began attending, and over the past 4 years, I've attended several ceremonies dealing with problem-solving court, and you truly see, oftentimes it may take 1 or 2 times for an individual to go back, but it gives them the opportunity to kick the addiction or the alcohol problem or behavioral problems to be active members in society. And so I'll continue. I'm excited to take over that role as sheriff and be involved as much as I can in those programs. And to me, I believe court security and these prevention programs both reflect some of the same principles, protecting the people while strengthening our community and making Christian County a great place to live. Thank you.
On the court security, understand that we're one of the few counties that does not have an underground Sally Port or direct connection to bring inmates into the courthouse, into the courtroom. So they actually have to pull inmates up outside and bring those inmates in from the outside, and you can imagine what potential security risks can be involved in that, and they've done a good job at that, but that's something that I've always worried about and wish that we had some type of connection for them. All right. We have students here tonight that will be graduating this year. In fact, I was talking to some of them that they get to vote for the first time in this primary election and then in the general election, and I want them to have a perfect record all during their voting career. Wouldn't that be exciting? I don't think any of us could say that exactly, but we want them to shoot for that. Can you recommend to them a career in law enforcement, and what are the biggest concerns for law enforcement officers today?
So I would definitely recommend a career in law enforcement. It's one of the most rewarding careers that I've worked several different careers prior to law enforcement. It's one of the most rewarding careers that you've got the ability to help someone and yet see the results on a daily basis. Besides, when they focus on a career in law enforcement, I'd like to remind those students listening or anybody else thinking about a career in law enforcement that it's not just about being a police officer or deputy. It's all a big part of the team, and there's law enforcement careers that happen to go all the way from dispatch, corrections, as well as clerical and administrative that's involved directly with law enforcement. So it's all crucial to public safety, and I think it's an outstanding career for the young people to consider when they're picking their career choice. And for me, that's why I'm proud to serve on the Lincoln Land Community Law Enforcement Advisory Board, where I have the opportunity to meet with the administrators of the college, the faculty, and students, and have a direct input on what the needs in the future are going to be for law enforcement and the needs of hiring those individuals. And it aligns with the curriculum of what's needed in the future workforce. So for me, when it comes to what is the biggest concern in law enforcement, that's a tough one because law enforcement, there's so many law enforcement challenges over the years that constantly change. But I will tell you, if I had to pick one, I truly believe mental health is an epidemic and a crisis in not just in Christian County, but it's statewide, it's nationally. But we struggle so much, and I've ran on mental health on my campaign from day one, that mental health is an issue. And that's why I've went to the local health department. And over the past several months, I've been sitting down at the table with them, and I look at it this way. Oftentimes somebody's in a mental health crisis, and law enforcement's the deputies are first to respond, and yet they're not mental health professionals. So they do the best they can with it, whether it's convincing somebody to go to the hospital or seeing what resources are there. And that's why through the local health department, we've got a program that we're working on weekly to see about implementing here at the sheriff's office, and I'm assuming countywide, that the health department is looking to put on an on-call advocate or a mental health professional that once the scene is secure, the plan is to then have them respond and give assistance to the deputies in handling that mental health crisis. And that's something that, like I said, it's being done weekly with the health department. And to me, that's just a way that it's a resource that we can address the mental health locally. The plan would also be to have that individual come in and make frequent and more often visits with the inmates to supply mental health stability while they're waiting trial. And that's why I'm currently pushing for that so hard with the mental health advocate. So to me, it's just for a safer outcome for the deputies, the person in the crisis, and it gives them an opportunity to have resources after post the incident, as well as their family members dealing with it. Thank you.
While it's no secret that times have been tough for agencies to recruit and retain, this is still one of the most noble professions to pursue. The skill that you obtain, combined with the training you will receive, will help you as young adults into the leaders of tomorrow. Whether you make a career of law enforcement or pursue other opportunities after a few years, hiring managers will see the experience and professional of law enforcement officer and immediately know that the applicant is focused, disciplined, reliable, and operates well under pressure. These skills are hard to develop in most other career fields, and the experiences our members gain sets them apart from all other applicants. When I tested for Christian County in 2006 for the full-time job, there were 65 candidates. Now I think the last time the county tested, there was 8. That shows that it's getting harder to find qualified applicants for the job. I would like to see us hire deputies from within the jail staff. That will show us how they work with inmates, how their work ethic is, and how they handle stressful situations. I believe we can get back to the kind of workplace where we had where it was a career and not a stepping stone for other departments. Mental health is a big issue of mine, and I think it's a big issue of law enforcement. Like Jim said, it's very crucial that we get the training that we need to perform good in them stressful situations with mental illness, and understanding it and training is the best way to overcome that, I believe.
What are your priorities for the Sheriff's Department, and how will you allocate resources to address them? Your first step.
My priorities are returning the Sheriff's Office to a full, viable, functioning capacity, strengthening our community, supporting ties, and emerging as a premier law enforcement agency in the region. By working with the Christian County Board to allocate additional resources and programs to the Sheriff's Office, I will set a bedrock foundation. From them begin to evolve into a more successful agency. I plan to utilize grant funding to offset growth costs to taxpayers in providing additional tools for our personnel to use, specifically a huge grant opportunity that has not been pursued recently by the Sheriff's Office in form of the COPS grant, which allocates 3 years' salary of funding additional personnel. Beyond these avenues, though, I plan to actively manage the Sheriff's Office current allocations with making sure they receive the best value for the taxpayers' dollars, and that we cut insufficient waste points and redirect those funds to where it matters most: the response operations, the deputies, corrections, and dispatch.
So my main priorities, like I mentioned prior to this question, was mental health. Obviously, I touched on what my plan is with that. My priorities focus on public safety and community engagement and support to the at-risk seniors in that population. So in addition to mental health, one of my top priorities is expanding the child exploitation and the grooming of youth in the community. I've reached out and plan to work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and through grant funding, as well as the state police, and I've been in contact with the local FBI agency out of Springfield, and I'm excited to look at the future to where we can get the IT equipment to prevent child exploitation and get the deputies through certified classes able to better handle them crimes. Excuse me. And the other, number two, I plan to revise the senior program, previously known as the Triad program, and I'll be personally running that program to provide an advocate for resources when it comes to fraud, scams, identity thefts, and crimes against seniors, as well as provide them resources like the mobile SOS driver's license renewal truck that will come in at a date and time to allow them to renew their driver's license. It was just last night that I spoke with the head of the Christian County Senior Citizens here in Taylorville, and she's really excited about the vision of that program and working with local churches and organizations to give those a foundation that don't have support locally, whether that's family that's just that they don't have any local family, or that families out of the area, and just basically provide them with resources, whether that's a ride to the hospital or a support checking on them when it comes to weather, and just basically being there for the elderly. Additionally, my opponent mentioned something. We have applied aggressively for the COPS grant and was turned down 2 years in a row. Fortunately, I have found another resource, and I'm excited about this one, that for the past 6 months, I've basically, from the state side, they're ready to move forward with it. I have to finalize collaboration with the county board of the policy in enacting this, but it's going to be basically getting resources from a state-funded agency through DCFS, and DCFS would allow us to put a deputy assigned to DCFS that will respond to incidences with their investigators in the need. Now, that can be anywhere from 100 to 75 throughout the year in Christian County, but the secondary benefit to that is when that individual doesn't have a call, it allows for the department to utilize that deputy however see fit. And my vision of that would be that we will take that DCFS worker who's going to be paid for by DCFS, reimbursed to the county for salaries, pension, benefits, vehicle, uniform, and everything involved with that individual on a 4-year agreement. And I could do it tomorrow if we were at full staff, because it requires pulling somebody senior out and appointing them to that position, or, and there again would reduce the overall staffing. So as soon as we get, I've got a guy starting Monday to replace a retired individual. I've got one in the academy, and we'll be able to capitalize on that DCFS opportunity to fully fund a deputy out in the county. With that, my goal then would be to assign that individual in the event that they're not working with DCFS. They would come in, and those hours would be spent in villages such as Mount Auburn, Tovey, Kincaid, Langleyville, Awanaco, anywhere that doesn't have a police department. They would have assigned dedicated hours providing service to better serve the community, all while having the benefit paid for by the state. And that's an exciting opportunity. So finally, I'll continue to promote the Sheriff's app, keeping citizens connected and publicly informed, up to date with road closures, scams, direct communications, and anything going on within the Sheriff's office. Allocating these resources and getting the deputies trained and the residents informed and the at-risk seniors are protected will be a top priority. Thank you.
Yeah, I want you both to take care of the seniors, okay? All right. What do you think is the number one thing that needs to be done at the Sheriff's Department, and how will you accomplish it? The number one thing.
Okay. So to me, the number one thing that needs to be done at the Sheriff's Office is ensuring that we're fully prepared to meet the evolving challenges of modern law enforcement. To me, if you look at it, crime has changed, technology has changed, and the community's expectation. Some examples of that, and I'm probably dating myself here, but if you start in 1998 in law enforcement, you don't have body cams, you're not going to Zoom court, you don't have computers in the car, you don't have digital tickets now. There's not a thermal drone that we thankfully acquired through a grant funding, or non-lethal, we didn't have as many non-lethal weapons. So those are some of the things that will continue to change, and we have to be able to adapt and change. And, and I get the analogy that everything that we do and how we're doing it today is probably not how we're going to be doing it, whether that's next year, 5 years from now, and definitely not 10 years from now. I think all of us in here know that there's a big push at the Sheriff's Association that I attend the conference every year. AI is coming. I mean, it's going to be one of those things, you drop your body cam in and help you write the report. So the biggest thing that we need to do is always be able to adapt and change and provide the training and the necessary tools to accomplish that goal. So that's why I'm committed to investing in technology and training when it comes to combating child exploitation, strengthening the mental health, and modern safety equipment, not only on the road, but in the jail, as well as the courthouse. And it means improving the communication with the citizens through the tools that we use, just like the technology of having the Sheriff's app and be able to basically have an open line of communications, to be able to do something as simple as post your house on vacation, and we can assign somebody to drive by there and take a look at it at night. So as Sheriff, I'll continue moving forward proactively, responsibly, and with a clear vision of the future of protecting Christian County at a minimal impact to the taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
The number one priority I'll be working on day one at the Sheriff's Office is to fix the conditions for the employees. Morale in that department is the lowest it's been in several years, as indicated by the Sheriff's Office FOP Lodge 237 endorsement of me. You'll be impressed by what our deputies are capable of getting done when they know they are operating in safe numbers and an administration that will back them up. I know this because I've worked alongside of these guys in the Sheriff's Office for years, and I know firsthand of the great things they're capable of getting done. We were a strong team once, and we can be a strong team again if the citizens are willing to give me the opportunity. I'll be the kind of sheriff that will be out with my guys patrolling on the weekends. I believe you lead by example, not by dictating orders. I will be the kind of sheriff if one of my guys wants to go to his kid's baseball game, basketball. They can go do that. I'll be the kind of sheriff that on Christmas morning, if my deputies has got little kids and want to stay home with their kids, I'll be the kind of sheriff that I'll be out there with them. That's what I plan on changing the most.
Okay, thank you. How will you ensure the Sheriff's Department builds and maintains community trust? What are your views on community policing, where law enforcement and members of the public work together to address crime?
Being seen. Having an open door policy and being proactive and checking our community ensuring our community stakeholders is a concept that needs to return to the sheriff's office. Part of the reason I put myself forward in consideration for sheriff was hearing the community say the sheriff's office was non-responsive and inattentive to their needs and concerns. When people would complain about the sheriff's office, didn't care about my needs as a deputy, that bothered me, because I knew the feelings were not as a result of the actions of too few deputies, but the administration not meeting the public halfway, working towards lasting improvements to our community. When people have a problem, they want to speak to the sheriff. I would hold community functions in villages, barbecues, hot dogs, hamburgers in their village parks around the county. I believe that's important for the people of the community to see who's protecting them. Thank you.
So, building and maintaining community trust starts with communication, visible and accountability upon the leadership. That's why I'll be planning some, and I've made it to meetings before to talk to them. That's why we currently have deputies working after hours over at Kincaid in their absence of their law enforcement. We've been to these villages to offer same way an assumption. If somebody has a chief that's out on a military leave, we need to work together to see what we can do to provide a service in their absence. So meetings with the mayors, the chiefs of police, and the board members at each village, and to see if we can work collaboratively to work to problem solve and take an approach, how can we better do it than we was doing it yesterday. My opponent mentioned something. The deputies do have the opportunity. We promote the idea of going to their ball games, being out seen in the public at the sports events, as well as school functions. So when it comes to community trust and policing, that's why for as long as I can remember, the sheriff's office, and now for the last 4.5 years, every third Thursday of the month, we show up with WTIM and discuss what's gone on in the last month, what's going on currently, and what can they look at to be the future when it comes to what's happening at the sheriff's office. And it's the same way. I believe truly in transparency and communication is the biggest way to build public trust, and that's why I push so hard to acquire the app and put so much effort into operating that, whether it's me up at 4 o'clock in the morning putting out a road closure or just anything going on in congratulations of a new hire or any communications that we can put out with the app. I think it says a lot when you have over 12 or 13,000 users that have downloaded the app and they use it every day, whether that's in court or anything else. It's a good, transparent, and communication piece of a tool that we can use to provide information to the community. So my goal is simple. It's to be visible, approachable, accountable to the people that we serve throughout the county, and always keep public safety first at mind. Thank you.
All right. I think you covered 11, the technology, really.
Yeah.
Both of you did fine. So I'm going to get to the last question of the night. And I don't want an applause because it's the last question of the night. We've covered a number of issues tonight. In these last few minutes, tell us why you are the best candidate to be Christian County Sheriff? You're first up.
So tonight I've discussed budgeting, jail renovations, court security, technology, mental health, child protection, and community trust. What ties all those things together is leadership and proven experience. So I bring 27 years of law enforcement experience, a degree in law enforcement, and the experience at every level of this profession, to include the canine officer, investigations, chief of police, and most importantly, the opportunity to have served you as the chief deputy. I don't take that job lightly. It's a very important role, but I am honored to have had that to gain the experience in overseeing a $4 million budget, acquiring numerous grants, and improving on modern equipment and improving safety across the board. I use my leadership for a strong community engagement and transparency through the app, and I've worked collaboratively with the county board, judges, and chiefs and throughout the community to partner to solve problems. And I would say this, when the voters go to the polls, you're not just electing a sheriff, you're hiring someone. And I think we can all agree when an employer hires someone, the first thing that they look at is that individual's experience, their resume, and their proven results as the job that they were doing that they're applying for. And I believe that my experience speaks volume. I'm not running on a theory, I'm running on records of results. I believe Christian County deserves a sheriff who understands the job from the ground up and who supports the deputies, manages his taxpayer dollars responsibly, who leads with a steady leadership, and holds himself as well as the individuals accountable for a profession well beyond any other profession out there. So for me, I'm running to lead from day one, and I'd be honored to have your vote on March 17th. Thank you.
I'm sitting here before you all tonight because I feel that I'm the best candidate for the next Christian County Sheriff. I'm a candidate with the most law enforcement support. I was endorsed by Taylorville's FOP Lodge 187, which is Taylorville and the surrounding towns, as well as the Christian County Lodge 237, which consists of the dispatchers, correctional officers, and deputies. I believe I can unite the departments in the county to keep all the citizens safe. I'm a very approachable, compassionate person, but I'm also very tough on crime. Throughout my law enforcement career, I knew one day I wanted to be the Christian County Sheriff. This is a title I don't take lightly and would consider it a great privilege to represent our county. And like I said earlier, thank you to the Optimist Club, Judge Spears, and anyone else involved in tonight's debate. Thank you for being here tonight, and have a safe evening. If anyone has any questions or concerns, I'm an open book. You can get a hold of me at 217-306-DEAL. Thank you.
So let me... That was a great effort on behalf of the candidates, and I want to thank all of you that have stayed here to watch and watch on television, listen. This is what democracy is, and what you're discovering is democracy is hard. It's hard for our citizens to give 2 hours to listening to two of the most important positions in this county. It's hard. Don't kid me. It's hard. But that's our responsibility as citizens, because you see the responsibilities that these judge candidates and these sheriff candidates are willing to undertake for us. The least that we can do is to give them our time and respect, and to give them close consideration for the efforts that they're putting in. And we've shown that we can do that tonight, and I hope that we continue to do that in the future. So congratulations to all the candidates. We appreciate you. We appreciate you giving of yourselves and your families. We want everybody to vote. We want you to vote on March 17th, and then we need you to vote again on November 3rd and participate in the greatest country on earth, the rights that were fought to preserve for us. The least we can do is show honor to that. Have a great evening.